Hello everyone and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Rakos. Today some people are gonna hate this channel for I'm gonna teach you how to play Starcraft the board game, and not just that, but also Brood War expansion. This game goes back in 2007, it's a very hard to find game, and even if you find it, you would have to pay quite a lot to buy it. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is not because I'm a show-off, or not just because I'm a show-off, but also because this is one of my favorite games and I always wanted to do this video since the start of this channel. Let's move to the table and hope you're still watching this video. In Starcraft, the galaxy is dominated by three unique and powerful races: the versatile Terran, the mysterious Protoss, and the voracious Zerg. In this conflict, each player starts with a single home planet base and is trying to expand and advance. On every round, in the planning phase, players secretly place their orders, which they reveal and execute in the execution phase. With the build order, players build units, advance their buildings and modules, unlocking new and more advanced units. With research, players develop their units, adding more powerful cards in their combat deck. And with mobilization, players move their units in the galaxy and attack key opponent areas through combat using a sophisticated card-driven system. Will you be able to trigger your special victory condition before other players, or will you be the first player reaching 15 conquest points and win in StarCraft? Start by randomly determining a first player and give that player the first player token. Starting with the first player and in a clockwise order, each player selects a faction. Players take the corresponding faction board, the faction's tokens, the faction's units, and the faction's cards. After you arrange tokens and units, separate your cards into three types: leadership cards, technology cards, and combat cards. Combat cards are shuffled and placed in this area face down. Technology cards don't need to be shuffled and are placed in this area face up. Leadership cards have this symbol indicating the three stages of the game. Players must now select one of their stage 1 cards and remove the rest. The selected card indicates your starting units and a special ability or power. Instead of a power, one of the stage 1 cards gives you an alternative winning condition. If you don't select this card, then this winning condition will not be applicable for you. Remaining cards for stage 2 and stage 3 are placed next to the player's play area to be used later. Place the conquest point track at one side of the table and each player places their conquest point token on space 0 of the track. Then create a supply of depletion tokens, resource tokens and guard tokens next to this board. Take all event cards and after you separate them based on their back, shuffle each stack. Then, depending on the number of players, you remove cards from each stack as I show you here with graphics. In our 3-player example, we have removed 15 cards from stage 1 and 15 cards from stage 2 without looking them. Finally, create a single event deck by placing stage 1 cards on top of stage 2 cards and the whole deck onto stage 3 cards. Place the event deck next to the conquest board. Now it's time to set up the galaxy. Shuffle all planet tokens and then in clockwise order, starting from first player, each player randomly selects 2. Players reveal their tokens and find the corresponding planets as well as their resource cards. Remaining planet tokens and resource cards are removed. Now players will choose to place their first planet on the table, again in player turn order. After you select one of your planets to place, you must decide whether that planet will be your home planet. If that's your home planet, you place one of your base tokens in one of the planet's areas and then all starting units indicated on your selected leadership card in one or more areas of the planet, except starting workers, which are placed in the worker pool area of your faction board. There are 2 rules you need to consider when placing units on planets. The number of these symbols in the area indicates the maximum limit of units for that area which you cannot exceed. These symbols come in 3 types. These only allow flying units to occupy the area. These only allow land units to occupy the area, and these allow any type of units to be present. Your faction board indicates whether a unit is flying or land unit from these illustrations. Finally, take all resource cards corresponding to your home planet and return the rest to the middle of the table in a common supply. After the first planet is placed in the galaxy, every next player must place their planet in any orientation, but always adjacent to at least one other planet. Connections come from these sides of the planet. If, for example, I place the planet like that, I must place a navigation route here to connect them. If I place it like this, then I must also make a connection with that planet too. After all players place their first planet, you repeat the process in reverse player order to place your second planet. Important, if you did not make your first planet your home planet, then you must select the second one to be your home planet, thus placing a base and your units there. After placing planets, take pairs of Z-axis navigation routes equal to players in the game and give one pair to each player. Then, in normal player turn order, each player must place both of these ends to empty connection slots of the galaxy. The only rule is you cannot place both ends to the same planet. These tokens create adjacency between planets, so this pair makes these two planets adjacent. After placing all navigation routes, again in player order, players take one of their transports and place it in an adjacent navigation route, either normal or Z-axis like this. At this point, the galaxy is complete. Remove planet tokens from the game and there should be a common supply of resource cards in the middle of the table for the unoccupied planets. As a last step, players draw 6 random cards from their combat deck to form their hand. Make note that the Terran factions start with 8 cards instead of 6 as their faction ability. The game is now ready to start. A short pause in the video here to remind you that if you haven't done already, please subscribe to this channel. It costs nothing but really makes a difference to me and this channel. Also hit that bell button so you get notified of all our future videos. The game is played in rounds and each round is split into 3 phases. Planning, where players plan their actions using their order tokens, execution, where players execute their actions, and a regrouping phase, which, among many things, you check if a player has won the game. Let's analyze the planning phase. In this phase, players alternate turns in player turn order, placing one of their order tokens on a planet, and this continues until all players have placed 4. Order tokens come in 3 basic types: build, mobilize, and upgrade. There is also one gold version of these orders that grants an improved version of the action. Players also have a defend order that they can use instead of a normal order token. When it's your turn to play an order, you must place it in the order area of a planet that either has at least one of your units or bases, or is adjacent to a planet that has your units or your base, regardless whether you have a transport between them. The order is placed face down, and if there are other order tokens from your opponent players, it is placed on top of the stack. Instead of placing a normal order token, you can use your defend order. The defend token is never placed in the order stack, but instead in a friendly area of the planet. Friendly is an area that has units and/or a base of yours, and no enemy units. Another difference with normal orders is that the defend order is resolved immediately after you place it in the planning phase. When you resolve the defend order, you are able to immediately transport any number of units from other areas of a planet or areas of an adjacent planet if you have a transport token between them. Of course, you can never exceed the unit limit of the area. Then you also place a guard token in the area that can be used during combat. After 4 cycles of placing orders, the planning phase ends and you proceed to the execution phase. In this phase, players in normal player order choose one of their orders to execute, and this continues until all orders are executed. Note that defend orders are already resolved in the planning phase. On your turn, you must select one of your order tokens that is visible on the galaxy, or in other words, on top of a stack. In our case, the Terran player must execute one of these 2 orders. You reveal the order and proceed with its execution. If you don't want to execute the order, or if you are unable to do so, you can choose to gain 1 event card and simply discard the order token. In case it's your turn to execute and while you have remaining orders on the board, if all of them are covered from opponent orders, then again you must take one event card and pass your turn without discarding any of your orders this time. Whenever you draw event cards, you draw them from the top of the stack and you place the cards next to your play area without looking them. If all your orders are already executed, your turn is passed and you wait until all other players finish with their executions. Now let's explain the three orders, starting with the build order. When you execute the build order, you may build units, transports and workers, upgrade your bases, or build a base in this specific order. To build units, transports and workers, you must have a base in the planet where the order is executed, even if there are enemy units in your base area. If you have no base, you skip the first part of your build execution. To upgrade your bases, you must have at least one base and/or friendly units on the planet where you execute. If you don't, you cannot upgrade your bases. To build a new base, you must have at least one friendly unit on the planet of the execution. In other words, if you don't have a base or a unit on the planet, you can do nothing. Simply take an event card. Building requires consuming resources by using your workers. Your faction board always offers you 4 potential minerals and 2 Vespine gas, but you can also use the resources on the resource cards in your possession. To use resources, however, you must have available workers in your worker pool to place in those sources. So, if for example I need to spend 2 mineral and 1 Vespine gas, I must have 3 available workers to place in 1 or more sources. For example, I could place workers like this. You cannot place more workers than available resources on your faction board. But territory cards can take more workers by force mining them. For example, if I wanted another mineral from this card that has reached its max, I could still place 1 more worker. I get the extra resource, but the territory becomes partially depleted. You flip the card to indicate this and also place a depletion token to the corresponding area on its yellow side. If the area was already partially depleted and did this, then the card is removed from the game and you also flip the depletion token in the area to the red side. You can fully deplete an area in one go by placing 2 more workers than its normal capacity. If a territory card is depleted, all workers in the card are moved to the unavailable workers area of your faction sheet. If you have resource tokens, you can spend them to gain the indicated resource without using workers or resource cards. When you build units, transports and workers, the costs are depicted on your sheets next to the unit you need to build. Workers cost 1 mineral. You can build any number of them, provided there are enough tokens in your supply, and all new workers are then placed in the unavailable worker area. Transports cost 1 mineral each, and again you can build any number of them. These, however, must be placed in navigation areas adjacent to the planet where you are executing the build order, and you can only have 1 on each navigation area. When it comes to units, you can only build units available by your buildings and/or played cards. For example, this Zerg player can build these units, but the player has also this active technology card, enabling the player to destroy 1 friendly Hydralisk and replace it with a lurker. This counts as a unit build. The number of units you can build with 1 build order is 2. Exception is the Zerg faction. Zergs build 2 units per building type they have constructed. Every faction has 3 building types. In this example, that Zerg player has 2 out of 3, so in a build action they could build up to 4 units. The costs for building units are on your faction board or technology cards. After you pay the costs, all new units must be placed on the active planet where you execute the build order in 1 or more friendly or empty areas. After you build workers, transports and units, you move to the next step and upgrade your bases. When you upgrade, you may build 1 building, 1 module, or 1 building and 1 module at max. The costs of buildings and modules can be found on the tiles. There are 3 types of buildings with up to 3 levels. When you upgrade, you can build the next level of any building. This will unlock new units for your next build order. Modules, once built, offer abilities and ongoing effects. Faction sheets indicate slots for modules, 6 for Terran and Protoss and 5 for the Zerg. There are 6 different types of modules and I will explain them a bit later. After upgrading bases, you may build one base on the active planet by paying the 2 mineral cost. Then you place your new base in any area with at least one friendly unit. Remember, each player can only have one base on every planet and there can only be one base in each area at max. When you execute a research order, you must first draw an event card. The rest of the steps are optional. You may draw 3 combat cards from your deck, and then you may purchase a new technology. After you select a technology from your deck, you must announce it to all players. This pictogram here indicates how many copies of that technology card can be found in the technology deck. If more than one, you must find all of the copies and pay the indicated cost on the card once, regardless the copies. All newly acquired cards are then placed in your combat deck and you reshuffle your deck together with all your discarded cards so far. Important, if you skip buying a technology, you don't reshuffle your deck. With the Mobilize order, players move their units on the galaxy and can initiate battles. After revealing the order, you may move any number of units, but the destination must be one or more areas in the active planet. So you can move units within the planet, but also bring units from multiple adjacent planets to areas of the active planet, provided you have a transport between the planets. You can freely move to friendly areas or empty areas. You can also move units into an area with enemy units or a base. Important, if you enter an area with enemy units, combat will be triggered at the end of your Mobilize order, and you may only trigger one combat per Mobilize order. So in this example, I can move my units here, but not also here. I can move into that area with an enemy base as well. This will not cause a combat since it's unguarded. Very important, you must always take account the unit limits of the areas as well as the type of units that can exist there. However, when you attack an area with opponent units, you may bring up to 2 more units than the unit limit of the area. So I could bring up to 4 units in that combat. I will leave the combat process for later. So far we have explained the planning and the execution phase, and we have skipped explaining combat and the factions of building modules. I will now explain the regrouping phase. This phase includes a number of steps that must be followed in order. As a first step, players check for destroyed bases and transports. If there are any bases that have enemy units in the area, all these bases are destroyed. Right after that, any transport with no friendly base in the 2 planets they connect are destroyed as well. Then, players check if they must lose resource cards. To keep a resource card, you must have a base in the planet. If you don't have a base, you will lose all resource cards you may have from areas in that planet. Also, to keep a resource card, there must be no enemy units or enemy base in the corresponding area. If there are, you lose the resource card. When you lose resource cards in the regrouping phase, any workers that exist on top of these cards are destroyed and the cards return to the supply, keeping their status if they are partially depleted. In the next step, players check whether they gain new resource cards. For all planets where you have a base, you gain all resource cards from friendly areas if you don't have them already. Also, if you are the only player with a base on the planet, you also gain the resource cards of all empty areas on the planet as well. In the next step, players retrieve all their workers from cards, their faction sheet and the unavailable workers area back into their worker pool. In the next step, players check the current stage of the game. This is the stage of the card on top of the event card. So now it would be the second stage. If players have not played a leadership card of the current stage, they select one to play now and remove the other from the game. Then players gain conquest points from friendly areas they control. The Zerg player in our example gains 4 conquest points. You mark conquest points in the conquest point board. After gaining points, you check if the game ends through normal victory. The main victory condition, common to all players, is to reach 15 conquest points. So in this step, if one or more players have reached or passed 15 points, the game ends and the player with the most points wins. If there is a tie, it breaks in favor of the player who has the most total resources available. If the tie still exists, the winner is the tied player controlling the most areas, and after that all tied players share the victory. After checking for normal victory, you check if a player has satisfied their special victory condition, if that was chosen through the first leadership card. If multiple players achieve their victory condition on the same round, the player with the most conquest points wins. If there is also a tie, follow the tiebreakers explained earlier. In the next step, players examine for the first time all event cards they acquired during the round and select one to play and discard the rest. These cards give you various rewards and bonuses. Important, Stage 3 event deck includes 3 The End Draws Near cards. If one of your event cards is this card, then you must choose that one to play. And if you have drawn more than one, then you must play all of them. If 2 such cards have been revealed in the game ends immediately after this step of the regrouping phase concludes. Again, the player with most conquest points so far will be declared the winner. After playing the event cards, players must now discard combat cards down to their hand limit, which is 6 cards, but 8 cards for the Terran factions. As a last step, and if the game has not ended, the first player token is passed to the next clockwise player and you begin the next round. We completed explaining the overview of a round in Starcraft. Now I will explain one of the major aspects of the game, which is combat. Combat is performed at the end of the Mobilize order if the player moved units into an area that has enemy units. That player is the attacker, while the other the defender of the combat. When combat commences, you place the Mobilize order in the middle of the area and take both attacking and defending units in an open space of the table. Through various cards, mainly from played event cards, players may have abilities which come in effect at the start of the battle, like this card here. At this point, the attacker first and then the defender may use only one such ability. Then, both players draw a number of combat cards. By default, the attacker draws 3 cards and the defender draws only 1 card, but specific abilities may increase this number. Remember that hand limit is only applied in the regrouping phase. In the next step, the attacker must establish skirmishes. First, you set aside all assist units from both sides, as assist units cannot be frontline units in skirmishes. Then the attacker matches one of their own units with an opponent's unit, creating as many skirmishes as possible. Exception: if all defending units are assist units, the attacker will choose one of them to be the frontline unit and all other units will be set aside. After this matching, any remaining assist and other units must be assigned to skirmishes as support units from the unit's owners. This is first done by the attacker and then the defender. After the skirmishes are ready, the attacker must play 1 standard card to each skirmish face down. Then the attacker may play a second card to each skirmish, but that second card must be a reinforcement card indicated by this plus symbol on top. As the first card of the skirmish only, if the player has no more cards in hand, or if the player wishes so, they may instead use the top card from the deck. If so, the card is placed in the skirmish without the player looking and no reinforcement card can be used for that skirmish. After the attacker, the defender follows, performing the same steps, playing cards into skirmishes. Now we are ready to resolve all skirmishes one by one, with the attacker choosing the order. After the skirmish to be resolved is selected, both players simultaneously reveal their cards. The combat card determines the base attack and health values of the player in that skirmish. If the frontline unit is depicted on the card, as in our case, you use the major values. If not, you use the minor values. These base attack and health values might then be affected by various abilities, like the ones on the cards played. Important: for the reinforcement card to apply its effect, the frontline unit of the player in that skirmish must be depicted on the reinforcement card. Otherwise, it's discarded immediately with no effect. Also, if there are any other abilities on the card, these will only apply again if the frontline unit is depicted on the card. So this ground or flying splash damage will apply. Now, after all attack and health values of frontline units are determined, you can check which units are destroyed. However, all units have the target capability. There are units that can target only air units, units that can target only ground units, and there are also units that can target any unit. In this skirmish, both frontline units are capable to attack each other. So in this skirmish, the attack value of the Archon is equal or higher than the health value of the Vulture. On the other hand, the attack value of the Vulture is not equal or higher than the health value of the Archon, so only the Vulture is destroyed. The combat card of the Archon uses a very special keyword, which is splash damage. For the splash damage to be applicable, the frontline unit must make a kill. Otherwise, the splash damage is not triggered. In our case, the Archon managed to destroy a unit. So, destroyed units return to their owners, all cards return to the owner's discard pile, but cards with triggered splash damage effects are set aside until the next step of the combat, after all skirmishes are resolved. Let's move to the next skirmish. In this skirmish, the combat card played by the Protoss player is not depicting a Dragoon, so the Dragoon will get the lower attack and health values of the card. Also, if the card had any additional abilities, these would not be applicable. In this skirmish, both players have supporting units. These units might give additional attack values depicted on your faction board. However, both supporting units are assist units and award no attack bonuses. If they did, again these would only apply if they are capable to target the frontline unit of the opponent. We will see an example of this in the next skirmish. In the skirmish, both players have also played a reinforcement card. We said before that the unit depicted on the card must be the frontline unit of the skirmish, which is not the case here. However, you see this little icon next to the Arbiter? This means that the Arbiter can be anywhere in the skirmish, and the effect will apply. And what's this effect? That both you and your opponent have a final attack value of 0 in this skirmish. So you can see in my graphics how this affects the attack value of the skirmish. On the other hand, the Terran player has also played a reinforcement card for their science vessel, which again can be anywhere in the skirmish. This card says that you cancel your opponent's reinforcement card. In addition, gain +3 attack versus an Archon, which is not the case, or +1 attack versus any other Protoss unit, which is the case. This modifies further the attack and health values of the frontline units for this skirmish. Both frontline units are capable of targeting each other, but only the battlecruiser has an attack value high enough to destroy the Dragoon. All cards are discarded, and all remaining units are kept. Let's move to the last skirmish. For the last skirmish, the units depicted on both players' cards are the frontline units, so the higher attack and health values apply. The Protoss player has a Reaver as a support unit, which awards +2 in the frontline's attack value. This makes the Scout able to destroy the tank. On the other hand, the tank's attack value is equal to the Scout's health value. However, the tank cannot target flying units. But just because the tank's attack value was enough to destroy the frontline unit, if there is any other supporting unit that the tank can target, it will destroy one of those units. So the Protoss player must decide one of their supporting units in that skirmish that the tank can target and destroy it. So the Reaver is destroyed together with the tank. The tank had a card awarding a ground splash damage, and the tank managed to destroy a unit in this skirmish, so this splash damage is triggered. The other one is discarded. That card also awards the tank with a collateral damage, which is not triggered in this case. We will explain collateral damage a bit later. After all skirmishes are resolved, all surviving units are gathered for the next step of combat, which is the resolve splash damage step. This step only takes place if there are triggered splash damage cards. Splash damage is applied simultaneously from both players. The Terran player has gained a ground splash damage. This means that they will destroy one of the Protoss ground units. The Protoss player will decide which unit will be destroyed, however there is only one ground unit and that destroys the Archon. The Protoss player has gained a ground or flying splash damage. The Protoss player decides which type of splash damage they will apply. The Terran player only has flying units remaining, so the Protoss player decides to apply a flying splash damage. For the sake of the example, let's say that the Terran player decides to destroy the battlecruiser. The last step of combat is to resolve retreats, and that's actually the outcome of combat. For the attacker to be successful, all defending units must be destroyed. Otherwise, remaining defending units return to the contestant area and any attackers must retreat. We will explain retreat in a bit. However, if one of the sides is only left with assist units, which is the case for the Terran player, then that player must retreat and the other player will return to the contestant area. When you retreat, you must move all retreating units to one area. This area must be either friendly or empty, and this can also be an adjacent planet if you are connected with one of your transports. So, valid retreating areas for the science vessel are these. Remember that you must always comply with the unit limit of the area. If the selected retreat area is not capable to hold all retreating units, then any excess retreating units will have to be destroyed. This could also be the case for the winning attacker if they attacked with more units than the unit limit of the area. Remember, they can attack with up to 2 more units than the limit. Again, they will have to retreat excess units. In case both sides must retreat units, the defender always resolves their retreat first. That was the end of our combat example. I have left for the end the use of guard tokens. At the very start of the combat, if you are defending in an area that has one or more guard tokens, you can discard one of them to get +2 health in all skirmishes of the battle. Important, if you use the guard token, no other ability that gives a health bonus will apply, unless it's a higher bonus, and in that case the higher bonus will apply instead. So if I use the guard token and also an ability that grants a +1 health to a skirmish, the health bonus of that skirmish will remain +2. But if a bonus added +3 health to a skirmish, while all skirmishes get the bonus of +2, that specific skirmish will have +3, but not +5. Finally, if you lose a territory with an unused guard token, it will be discarded automatically. In this appendix, we will talk about powers of modules. There are 6 different modules. One of the most important modules is research and development. It enables you to use a special order token, which is better than normal ones. There are 3 such modules per player, so that players can use all 3 special tokens in the same round. In fact, during the planning phase, you are always allowed to use these orders. But when you reveal them in the execution phase, you must have built one of these modules in order to execute it. Otherwise, you must discard it and gain an event card as normal. In my example, at the moment of revealing the special order, I have a development module, so I place the order in this area and proceed with its execution. If in the same round I revealed another special order, I would have to discard it, since I have only one module and I already executed a special order. Let's explain the differences of special orders, starting with the special build. It increases your build limit by +1 and you also get a discount of 1 resource for the entire execution. If you attack an area using the special mobilization order, you will get +2 combat cards in the corresponding step, thus 5 cards instead of 3. Also, you get +1 attack bonus in each skirmish. When you use the special research order, on top of the normal execution, you get 1 more bonus. Either +1 event card, or if you researched a new technology, you place 1 of the acquired cards in your hand instead of shuffling it in the combat deck. Next comes the supply module. Each of them increases your build unit limit by +1 when you execute the build order. So, in this example, I could build up to 4 units. Zergs don't have this module. Next we have the Air Support module, which grants 3 effects. The first is that if combat is performed in areas containing your bases, all your units gain the Detector ability. This will help you detect cloaked units. We will talk about these in a bit. The next advantage is that in combat in areas with your base, you get +1 attack in skirmishes where the frontline unit of the opponent is a flying unit. The most important advantage of this module is Orbital Defend. If you have built this module, opponents can only attack your base areas by moving units from the same planet. If, for example, the Terran player has built this module and the Zerg player mobilized in this planet, they could only bring these units in the Terran base area and not also from other planets. The offensive module enables the attacker to ignore the orbital defense ability of the Air Support module by destroying the transports from the adjacent planets used to bring units. In our previous example, if the Zerg had built the offensive module as well, they could also bring units from that planet to the Terran base area if they destroy that transport. If they also bring units from that planet as well, they must also destroy this transport. Note that if they move units to another area, there is no need to destroy the transport. With the defensive module, when you defend, after skirmishes are made, you can swap any 2 of your units between skirmishes. Important: if you switched frontline units, the opponent frontline unit must still be able to target the new unit you just placed. Finally, we have the Assist module. After you build this module, your assist units don't count towards the unit limit of the area. So I could have all these units in the area. Also, when you attack, 1 assist unit does not count towards the attacking unit limit. So I could attack this area with 5 units instead of 4 if one of my units has the assist attribute. I explained earlier the importance of splash damage keyword ability, as it helps especially the attacker to destroy all defending units and win the area. In this last section of the video, I will explain 2 more important keywords: cloaking and collateral damage. If a unit that has the cloaking ability is destroyed in the resolve skirmish step, the unit immediately withdraws instead of being destroyed. The difference between withdrawing and retreating is that when you withdraw, you must find a valid, friendly or empty area of the same planet only. If both sides must withdraw units in the same skirmish, defender takes precedence. Important: if a unit with a cloaking ability is destroyed in the resolve splash damage step of the combat, it cannot withdraw. It's worth to say that if a unit has the detector ability, the opponent's unit loses cloaking. If a unit with a collateral damage ability is not destroyed in the resolve skirmish step, then after all skirmishes are resolved, the player may either destroy an enemy base immediately, or destroy all workers currently existing on the corresponding resource card, or destroy an enemy installation. Installations come into play through various special faction abilities, but these will not be covered in this video. And that were the rules of Starcraft the board game. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.